Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many small congregations just like ours. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members. Each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy.
I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love, can't buy me love. Can't buy me love, everybody tells me so. Can't buy me love, can't buy me love, no, no. I'll give you all I've got to give if you say you love me too. I may not have a lot to give, but what I've got I'll give to you. I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love. La 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 la. Say that you need no diamond rings and I'll be satisfied. Tell me that you want the kind of things that money just can't buy. I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love. I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love.
A reading from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. The parable of the widow's mite. He looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 copper coins. And he said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all the living that she had." Please recite with me our shared affirmation of mission. This fellowship is a welcoming, diverse, and nurturing beloved community that promotes progressive religious thought and practice to create a more loving, just, and sustainable world.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this fellowship, whether near or far, we're blessed by it, for the bonds we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this fellowship. Oh, we give thanks for this fellowship, whether near or far, we're blessed by it, for the bonds we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this fellowship. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. We're gathered here. We're gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. We give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. We're all gathered here. We're gathered here. And those far away. And those far away. For this time we share. For this time we share. With love and care. With love and care. We give thanks. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We're all gathered here, and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Deep calls unto deep. Joy calls unto joy. Light calls unto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less. We pledge ourselves to be bearers of the light wherever we are.
Who is a rich man? About 6 months after his first heart attack, Karen suggested that I take my father away overnight, just like he used to take me away on fishing trips when I was a kid. So I found an inn up on Lake St. Clair, an hour north of Detroit, where the two of us, now that we both realized he wasn't going to live forever, could have some time alone. We took the newly completed Ruther Freeway all the way to the end, and from there headed north toward Mount Clemens. There used to be some kind of spa there where all the Jews went. There is also a big cemetery where my father's parents are buried. We visited their graves. After serving in the Navy during World War II, my dad got a job as a display artist and later as an appliance salesman for Sears and Roebuck. After he retired, he spent the last 15 years of his life as a kind of executive superintendent at the temple where I grew up. I don't think it ever occurred to him to ask for a penny. He just liked helping people. I guess other people liked it too. 700 people came to his funeral. We drove on that freeway as if it were a plateau out of time. And then, as if he had been secretly rehearsing it for years, my father said something that still strikes me as a confession of the bittersweet reality of what it means to be a provider. "I suppose," he muttered, "I wish I could have earned more money for your mother and you boys." I thought I made all the right decisions at the time, but now, in retrospect, I guess some of them lost us money. That had never occurred to me. I knew we weren't wealthy like many people we knew, but I always thought we were well off. Sure, while I was growing up, I wanted to be able to buy fancier clothes at fancier stores, but we always seemed to have enough money for vacations that seemed fun and exciting. We would drive up into northern Michigan or take the train to Chicago and stay in the best hotel for a few days. I am astonished as I look back that it never once occurred to me or my brother that we should go to the Caribbean or to Europe, or that we should own a vacation home or 2 cars. I think now that if such thoughts had occurred to my father, he had kept them a secret from all of us, maybe even from himself. Once my father built a patio behind our house. We bought a charcoal grill and my mother gave him a chef's hat and invited my older cousin Marty and his kids over for a barbecue on a perfect Sunday afternoon. His dad set a hamburger from the grill onto a paper plate. He said with a grin, "I wonder what the poor people are doing today." Just a few years before he died, I finally convinced him that he could afford to sell the house, move into a garden apartment, and, as they say, live off the interest. We stood there watching the movers position the sofa. He said to me, "Larry, I feel like a rich man." So when he died a few years later, and my brother and I chose an inscription for his tombstone, we agreed on the Talmudic passage, "Who is rich? He who is content with his portion."
My sermon today is entitled 2 Copper Coins, a sermon towards effort. The Saturday before Mother's Day in 2011, 10 years ago, I received flowers, a cheerful and lovely yellow and white spring bouquet in a scalloped glass vase delivered to my porch in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The flowers were a happy surprise from my daughter, Kayla, then a college student out in Oregon. I brought the flowers inside and I pulled out the card from the small Oliver Flower Shop envelope, and it read, "Happy Mother's Day. I am so grateful for all you do. Love, Michaela." I smiled and sighed because I was touched, because I knew she couldn't really afford to send me flowers, and also because the word grateful was charmingly misspelled as Greatful. This reminded me of the sign over her 3rd grade classroom door that read, "Mistakes welcome here." And mistakes was spelled Misteakes. I took the card with the flowers as a reassuring affirmation that I had done a good job at mothering, even if I made some mistakes along the way. Let's say I got a B+ for effort. Throughout the ensuing week, I so enjoyed those flowers, residing in a place of honor on my dining room table. And then Saturday rolled around again. And wouldn't you know, a bouquet of flowers showed up on my porch again, same vase, same arrangement, and the same card. How did I know? Greatful. I took the flowers inside and I called the flower shop to report the mistake and to ensure that Michaela would not be charged again. "Oh no," they assured me, "it's just a computer glitch. Must have put in the order as a repeat. Sorry, just keep them." So the new flowers replaced the old ones, and the second card found its way to the fridge front, held in the same magnetic clip as the first one. And a week passed, and well, you guessed it, more flowers, same card, same phone call. The flowers stopped after that, but the impact lingered. Should I have been annoyed or just GREATFUL myself to the universe for reminding me that my effort, my 2 cents worth, mistakes and all, might have even been worth 3 weeks of flowers? I went the gratitude route. And my somewhat surreal experience that May led me to more deeply appreciate the effort of the woman in the parable of the widow's mite, a scriptural classic that's been sliced and diced with every possible theological blade to expose its central message. Does this parable from Luke sound familiar to you? Does it seem obvious in its moral and symbolism? Having been privy to such dissections in divinity school, I can say that it's not quite as straightforward as it seems to discern the central message of this parable of the poor widow who places 2 copper coins, 2 pennies, 2 cents, which was a fortune to her, in the treasury. Let's consider the options. First, the coins she tossed in were probably leptons, the smallest Jewish copper coinage, a penny, basically. So are we to take away the admonition to be generous even in our poverty? That would be an obvious and satisfying conclusion, and not exclusively Christian by any means. Without looking very hard, we can find examples of that very thing in most of the world religions. Zadaq in Islam, Tzedakah in Judaism, Dana in Buddhism, and so on. Perhaps when we reflect upon this parable, we're expected to consider the true rewards of faith, greater than gold and silver. That's certainly a prevalent theme in the parables and in the world religions as well. Now, neither of these interpretations are spiritual time wasters. However, I like Dr. Henry Everett's take on the parable of the widow's mite. Henry was a parishioner of mine in Reading, Massachusetts back in 2000. He was a kind, intellectually nimble man, a psychiatrist with a soul who loved to figure things out, including the parable of the widow's mite. He zeroes in on something else entirely, something unexpected and quite intriguing about the parable in a chapter from his book called From Adversity to Invincibility. The widow's effort is the standard, Henry tells us. Her effort. In other words, the action rather than the amount is significant. Doing what you can is enough, he writes. Do not compare your achievements with those of others. You can sensibly rate yourself only by how well you apply your available resources, mental, physical, economic, and social. The parable of the widow's mite, at least for today, in this time and place, is essentially about effort and about how it is the attitude with which we throw in our 2 cents that counts as much as the 2 cents itself. This interpretation is simpatico with your stewardship campaign this year at Sedona UU Fellowship, giving generously according to your means. Your means are your means. The generous part lines up with effort. Effort is the standard. Yes, outcomes matter. There's no free lunch in the free church, but we cannot predict outcomes or guarantee them. Mistakes happen too, because we are human. Our mistakes do not nullify our effort. The present is the only thing over which we have command, writes Dr. Everett. The end product is not insignificant, yet the effort is the only standard we can realistically apply in the here and now. So if the effort is the standard, how might we define effort religiously? As I see it, effort can be divided into 2 major categories, exertion and intention. And we find examples of these aspects in several of the world religions. Usually when we think of effort, we first imagine exertion, blood, sweat, and tears, pushing the ball up the hill, chopping wood and carrying water, crawling on our knees to the Holy Land, and so on. There is nothing wrong with breaking a sweat spiritually. I recommend it. And there's nothing wrong with striving for excellence, not perfection, mind you, excellence. Nobody ever rises to low expectations. Henry would say that when we strive for excellence, we're exercising what he calls our instrumental natures. The problem arises when religious exertion is misdirected. I'd argue that the most notorious example of this maligning of a positive religious exertion is the pillar of Islam known as jihad. The Islamic idea of jihad is derived from the Arabic root meaning to strive, or literally to make an effort. Many of us cringe, though, when we hear this word because it has been misappropriated by Islamic extremists to mean holy war and has come to be inextricably linked with terrorist activity. This is unfortunate, as you may be surprised to learn that although jihad means exertion for God, it was originally intended as a non-violent struggle for justice and inner peace. In fact, the mystical Sufis popularized a tradition describing the inner jihad as much more significant as any outer jihad. Yet, since Islam focuses on the welfare of society and humanity rather than the boundaries of an individual, a person cannot keep improving themselves in isolation from what happens in the world at large, or your congregation at large, or Sedona at large, and neither can we. To apply this Islamic idea to our Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, I'd suggest that we balance our exertion for personal spiritual growth with our effort to nurture and preserve and fund this institution and build up the wider community. We strive, remember to strive, jihad, effort. We strive to deepen our spirituality, and we exert ourselves for other members of our fellowship and people in the community. We throw in our 2 copper coins, our 2 cents worth. Inwardly and outwardly, the effort is the standard. The Buddhists take this idea a step further by using mindfulness to discern the moral quality present in an action's roots before it's even performed. This way, one can determine if an action about to be performed is skillful or unskillful. These skillful acts, or what's called skillful means, they're constructive and life-affirming. They lead to a sense of ease and happiness and security. The widow in the parable seems contented in this way, doesn't she? I would quibble with Jesus over one detail, though. In my view, the widow gives not from poverty, but rather from a greater abundance than the rich folk surrounding her. Like Lawrence Kushner's father in the reading earlier, who was a rich man, the widow seems not only content with her portion, but she's willing to give it away. This is indeed skillful means with enormous moral quality. Her effort is the standard. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard poses an intriguing question about the widow in this parable in his book called Parables of Kierkegaard. And he writes, take the story about the woman who places 2 pennies in the temple treasury, but let us poeticize a little variation. The 2 pennies for her were a great sum, which she had not quickly accumulated. She had saved for a long time, and then she had hidden them, wrapped in a little cloth, in order to bring them when she herself went up to the temple. But a swindler had detected that she possessed this money, had tricked her out of it, and he had exchanged the cloth for an identical piece, which was utterly empty, something that the widow did not know. Thereupon, she went up to the temple, placed as she intended the 2 pennies, that is nothing, in the temple treasury. I wonder if Jesus would not still have said what he said of her, asked Kierkegaard, that she gave more than all the rich. I think Jesus would have adored and admired her even more, as it's absolutely the widow's intention as a basis for her action that makes her noteworthy to Jesus in the first place. He's not impressed with her money. He is impressed with her faithful effort. Let's turn to Hinduism, covering all the bases for a moment, where we find this principle in what's known as karma yoga, or seva, the yoga of Gandhi, among others, in which the fulfillment one derives from serving others has nothing to do with what is received and everything to do with the manner in which one gives. Maybe Jesus really did spend those lost years in India, as some people have suggested. I can't imagine that he would have cared if the widow's cloth was empty or not. In fact, several scholars have noted that Jesus watches how the multitudes cast money into the treasury. He's not so much concerned with what they gave, even though money was important and they needed it to sustain the temple, just as we need it to sustain our fellowship. But he was more interested in the attitude and the effort with which the money was given. Think of what we say to children, aphorisms like, it's the effort that matters, or you get an A for effort, or mistakes are welcome here, or just do your best, dear. Jesus saw the attitude of the soul. The rich gave their leftovers. The widow gives herself. Her effort is the standard. Our effort is the standard. Like Mother Teresa has said, don't look for spectacular actions. What is important is the gift of yourselves. And this applies to us here at the Sedona UU Fellowship as readily as it applies to the widow approaching the ancient temple. Your stewardship campaign is underway, as you well know. Have you tossed in your portion? What gifts do you bring here? To your relationships, to the world outside these walls? Are we stuck in scarcity thinking? If so, how might we share both the spirit and the substance of abundance? Do you feel like a rich person beyond the face values of your pennies, your portion? And what gifts might you be willing to receive in order to make the entire congregation more alive with gratitude, like those unexpected, repetitious flowers on my doorstep? The effort is the standard. At times, we give ourselves through the simple effort of being fully present. I once heard it said that 80% of life is showing up, and that sounds about right to me. Yet with all the distractions and the to-do lists and the incessant traumas happening around us, this grinding pandemic and the social media drain, being intentionally and mindfully present is more challenging than ever. In Hebrew scripture from Judaism, when a prophet is called, the answer is hineni, a Hebrew word which means, here I am. It means not just existing, but being fully present, expectant, and willing to engage. Many scriptural memories echo around this simple word. When God calls to Abraham, telling him to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac, Abraham says, hineni, here I am. In addition, later, when Abraham and Isaac walked together up the mountain, Isaac said, Father, and Abraham answered him in the same way, hineni, here I am. When God called to Moses out of the burning bush, Moses, what did he say? Hineni, here I am. When he was called to prophethood, a once reluctant Isaiah finally responded, hineni, send me. As a young boy sleeping in the temple, Samuel responded to God's call too, saying, Hineni, here I am. In the past, when I've been asked about my call to ministry, I've joked, I've been called many times, but luckily I had call waiting. When we are called to engage, to be present and intentional, to make an effort, to be generous, might we be inclined to say, well, okay, maybe me, but not just now, not when I'm so busy, not when there's so much else to do, when I have so many other things to which I'm committed. This is about where many of us feel we've been, certainly pre-pandemic, and where we don't want to go back to after lockdown, overstretched, overcommitted, and wondering if we've said, Hineni, here I am, a few too many times. Yet the deeper question is, have I said it enough? And have I said it to the right things? Saying Hineni expresses a willingness to open yourself to the experience being offered, to open your heart to what or who is calling you. Listen for that call. Pick a passion and throw in your 2 cents worth. The effort is the standard. If this all sounds too much like a 3 easy step, do it yourself in an afternoon spiritual craft project, let me assure you, having worn the hat of congregant, lay leader, staff member, and minister, I recognize that the effort inherent in giving ourselves, being fully present, showing up, exercising our instrumental nature, pledging generously, and so forth, is not easy or without risk. As Henry Everett points out in his book, effort carries the risk of failure. That is why some people can't bring themselves to make an effort in the first place. They want guaranteed results ahead of time. In other words, they say, here I am, and how does the story end? Or send me, but make sure to include a return ticket. Or here's my money in a transactional way. What am I going to get back? In other words, they say, I might be willing to undertake a jihad, but I want to know if it's worth it before I mount up. We may wonder if skillful means will lead to measurable ends, if our pledges will fund our pet projects. This is not surprising, given our achievement-oriented, quantifiable society. Yet, Henry reminds us the effort is the standard. Effort is an enlightened gamble, he tells us, a leap of faith in which there is reasonable possibility of success. One could argue that effectuating positive outcomes begins with effort and boils down to enthusiasm, a word that means possessed by the Spirit. If our efforts embody enthusiasm, then they will articulate the attitude of our souls, and there is a reasonable expectation of success. A children's story I like is called Benny's Pennies. Here he is on the front with his 5 pennies. And this is a story about effort and attitude. He has 5 copper coins, 5 pennies rather than 2, and he spends them to express his gratitude for his family. With his 5 pennies, he buys a rose, a cookie, a paper hat, a dog bone, and a fish, and he brings them home joyfully and generously to his family. His thoughtful and intentional effort is most definitely the standard, not the paper hat, the cookie, or the dog bone. You may wrongfully believe that your 2 cents isn't worth much, just 2 little leptons thrown into the treasury of the universe. But this is not true. My 2 cents, it seems, it was worth 3 unintentional weeks of Mother's Day bouquets. I answered Hineni to the call of motherhood, and yes, there were lots of times I felt my contributions went unnoticed and unappreciated. Yet I have been rewarded, not for being the best mother or minister, for that matter, but for my good, true, faithful, sustained effort. How about you? Your 2 cents, your 2 copper coins, shiny or tarnished. These 2 copper coins, well, they are your portion, your nobility of spirit, and thus they are worth their weight in gold. So toss them in. Hineni, here we are. Send us. We'll strive to be generous and grateful too, GREATFUL, and we will give it our best effort. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen.
Now is the time for silent meditation.
We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from your sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for that and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering of abundance to sustain and grow the life and mission of this fellowship. May we give in love and in hope. Thank you.
In gratitude of our many blessings and many needs, this morning's offering for this community will now be received.
All we want is a church right here, filled with folks who are full of cheer, with funds so we won't fear. Ah, wouldn't it be lovely? Lots of coffee for us to drink, lots of programs to make us think, some cash to keep us from the brink. Ah, wouldn't it be lovely? Oh, so lovely, given to support the fellowship. We'll give freely so the board won't have to use a whip. We will give till we feel real good, doing more than we thought we could. It seems like what we should. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely? Lovely, 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 lovely.
We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this space. May it guide your way until we are together again.
Be true, be well, be loving. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving.
Thank you.